There is a specific vibration felt just below the sternum. When a cold engine finally catches and settles into idle, not everyone feels it. Most people hear the noise. A few notice the warmth rising off the cylinders. But you feel it in your chest, like something waking up that was asleep all night. Like a pulse returning. And before you've even pulled on your gloves, something in you has already relaxed. The fact that you do, that's actually the beginning of what we need to talk about today. Here's what psychology would say about what just happened. That sensation you just registered, that wasn't mechanical perception. That was recognition. The same neural process that fires when you hear a friend's voice in a crowded room, or catch the specific smell of a place you grew up in. Your brain wasn't processing engine noise. It was processing familiarity, continuity, proof that something you care about is still there. There is a concept in material culture psychology called self-extension, first described by consumer psychologist Russell Belk in 1988. The argument is deceptively simple. The objects we invest, care, time, and attention, into begin to function as psychological extensions of the self. Not metaphorically, neurologically. The boundary between me and this object becomes genuinely blurry in the brain's architecture. The object stops being something you own and starts being something closer to something you are. But here is where it gets more specific and more interesting, because this doesn't happen with every object. It doesn't happen with your coffee maker, regardless of how many mornings it served you. It doesn't happen with your desk, your laptop, most of the tools in your life. It happens with this one. And the question worth sitting with, the question this whole video is really about, is why this one? Let's start with the behavior itself. Because before we get to the psychology, we need to name exactly what we're describing. And you'll recognize it. You name it. Maybe not publicly. Maybe it's never been said in front of anyone who would take it seriously. But the name exists somewhere between a thought and a habit. It surfaces naturally when you're talking about it, almost without you deciding to use it. You refer to it with a pronoun. She's running a bit rough today. He doesn't like the cold. This old thing. And you say it the way someone says it about a person they've known for 30 years, with a specific kind of affection that doesn't need to announce itself. You have rituals, not routines. Rituals. There's a difference, and you know it. A routine is a sequence you follow for efficiency. A ritual is a sequence that has meaning. Your pre-ride check isn't just mechanical due diligence. It's something closer to a greeting. There is a particular order. A pause before you turn the key, not to collect your thoughts, just to arrive. To be present in the moment before motion. You notice changes. A slight difference in the idle. A new sound from somewhere around the exhaust. A vibration that wasn't there last week. And you respond to these the way you respond to a change in someone's voice. With immediate, unspoken attention. Not alarm, necessarily. Just the quiet alert of someone who has learned to listen closely. And then there's this. You defend it. Not its specifications, not the engine displacement, or the torque figures, or how it compares on paper to some other model. You defend it. When someone is dismissive, or handles it carelessly, or reduces it to a category, it's just a motorcycle. Something tightens in you, an impulse to correct, or to remove, or at minimum, to create distance between that person and this machine. That isn't brand loyalty. It isn't enthusiast pride. Those are rational, outward-facing positions. What you felt in that moment is a boundary response. And boundaries, by definition, only exist around things we experience as part of ourselves. So how does this happen? How does a machine, metal, rubber, mechanical systems, come to feel like something with preferences, with moods, with a presence that you can sense across a parking lot? The relationship didn't arrive fully formed. Nobody buys a motorcycle and immediately feels this. It built slowly through something developmental psychology calls attunement through repeated co-regulation, which is a technical phrase for a very physical thing. Every time the machine pushed back and you adjusted, leaning deeper into a curve than you planned, feeling the front end lose grip slightly on wet paint and recovering without thinking, navigating a narrow gap at low speed while the bike moved underneath you. With an independent weight you'd learn to read. Your nervous system was in active negotiation with something outside itself. And over hundreds of hours of that negotiation, something changed in your body. Your muscles began to hold information about the machine that your conscious mind never processed. The particular way it settles under braking, how much lean angle it communicates before things get serious, the way it feels completely different at 30 miles per hour than it does at 70. You didn't study these things. You absorbed them. Gradually, through repetition, through failure and recovery, your body developed what researchers call proprioceptive memory, a physical record of shared experience that lives in your muscles and nervous system, not in your thoughts. This is not a small thing. It means the motorcycle isn't stored in your brain the way a car is stored, as a visual object, a tool, something you use. It's stored as a felt presence, as a set of behavioral tendencies you know intimately, the way you know the behavioral tendencies of a person you've spent years with. And that right there is the same cognitive architecture that makes us feel another person has a personality. We don't observe a personality from the outside. We never do, with anyone. We experience it through interaction, over time, until patterns emerge and solidify into something we recognize as consistent. We learn what they will do before they do it. We feel their moods before they name them. And that accumulated, embodied knowledge of how something or someone will behave, that felt anticipation is, functionally, what we mean when we say, we know someone. You don't think your motorcycle has a personality because you're projecting. You think it because you've learned it. There's a deeper layer here, though. And it has less to do with the machine itself and more to do with what it asks of you. Object relations theory developed in psychoanalysis, and, since echoed across decades of cognitive research, suggests that the objects we form the deepest bonds with are rarely random. They tend to reflect something about how we want to relate to the world, what kind of presence we want to bring to our own experience. Consider what riding actually demands. It requires your full attention, not the fractured, multitasking attention that most of modern life runs on, but complete, convergent, forward-facing awareness. You cannot ride well while mentally rehearsing a conversation from yesterday. You cannot plan dinner while navigating a twisting road at any speed that matters. The machine enforces a quality of presence that almost nothing else in contemporary life does. It narrows the world to this road, this moment, this series of decisions that are already beginning before you've consciously made them. For many riders, this enforced presence isn't an inconvenience. It's the point. It's the specific thing they're coming back for, again and again, often without being able to articulate why. Because the brain is an associative machine. It links emotional states to contextual cues. And over time, the motorcycle, its specific smell of oil and heat, the weight of the helmet going on, the sound of the first startup, becomes a consistent doorway into that state of presence. Simply being near, it starts to shift your nervous system before you've even moved. This is why people sit on parked bikes. Not to go anywhere, just to be there. This is why someone walks into the garage at the end of a bad day. Not to work on anything. Not to check anything. Just to stand near it for a while. And leave feeling fractionally more like themselves. The machine isn't transportation. Or it isn't only that. It's a reliable entry point into the most present version of yourself. And what you've built through the hundreds of hours of attention and negotiation and shared motion is a relationship with an object that consistently delivers you back to yourself. That is not a small thing to find, and it is not nothing to protect. There is another kind of person, and before I describe them, I want to be clear. This is observation, not ranking. For them, objects are tools, useful, sometimes beautiful, occasionally sentimental, but ultimately external. A motorcycle is a machine. A good one, perhaps. One they might even enjoy. But when it's gone, another takes its place without real grief. They upgrade without ceremony. They sell without the specific low-grade reluctance that you would feel for weeks before and after. They are, in many ways, less encumbered. They move through material life more lightly. They relate to the world primarily through ideas, through people, through outcomes and achievements, not through the physical objects that pass through their hands in their days. When they process a difficult week, they call someone, or they write, or they think it through on a walk. They do not go to the garage. They are not more rational. That framing is too easy, and it's wrong. They are simply wired to locate meaning in different registers of experience, and those registers serve them well. Neither is wrong, but they are very different kinds of people, and they move through the world differently. Here is what I've noticed. Across the research and across these conversations over the years, people who form deep relationships with physical objects, especially objects that require skill, full attention, and sustained presence over time, tend to develop an unusually early understanding of something that most people spend decades circling before they land on it. That meaning is not found. It is made. It isn't assigned by price tag or by what other people think the thing is worth. It doesn't live in the object waiting for you. It accumulates slowly, invisibly, in the hours of cold starts and long straight roads, and small repairs done badly the first time and then learned. In the particular quality of light at the end of a ride you didn't plan, on a day you needed it more than you knew. It is made by the investment of attention, sustained over time, and it becomes real, genuinely, completely real, because you made it real. That is not delusion. It is not sentimentality. It is one of the oldest and most human capacities there is. The ability to take something that did not matter and, through sustained attention, make it matter. Completely, irreversibly. Most people learn this late. Some people learn it only in retrospect, looking back at a relationship or a place or a chapter of life that they didn't know was precious while they were inside it. Riders who know it early, who feel it in their chest when the engine catches on a cold morning, they carry something quietly useful through the rest of their lives. Not a philosophy, not a principle, just the lived knowledge that presence, over time, is what makes anything worth anything. They just don't always have the words for it.